before the island was called Singapore long, before its ports blossomed with ships and its skyline rose like shimmering blades of silver, there existed only a quiet land, wrapped in fog and myth. The sea was restless in those days, whispering the names of forgotten gods, and the jungles growled with creatures sculpted from starlight and ancient storms. It was said that the island lay upon the back of a sleeping Titan lion, a celestial guardian who once roamed between worlds. When the Titan grew weary of watching the heavens, he descended to rest upon the earth, forming the land that would one day become the Lion City. His breath became the winds of the straits, his bones became the hills, and his heart continued to beat beneath the soil, calling out only to those worthy of hearing it. Across the seas, in the distant kingdom of Srivijaya, a young prince named Sang Nila dreamed of a destiny not bound to the palace walls. Guided by visions of a lion made of light, he believed that the spirits were calling him toward a new realm, one where rulers were chosen not by birth, but by courage. When a violent storm nearly shattered his fleet, Sang Nila witnessed a miracle. The waters parted for a heartbeat, revealing the glowing silhouette of the celestial lion beneath the waves. The vision marked him as the chosen one, the heir to a land shaped by gods and safeguarded by myth. Thus began his journey toward the radiant island where fate, courage, and prophecy would intertwine, and where a new kingdom would rise beneath the roar of an immortal lion. Chapter 1. The Prince Who Saw the Lion of Light. The court of Srivijaya shimmered like a kingdom carved from gold and coral. Yet the young Prince Sang Nila felt increasingly restless within its radiant halls. Each day he walked through colonnades of polished stone, listening to the echoing chants of priests and the murmurs of ministers. Every wall reminded him of duty. Every corridor reminded him of a destiny predetermined long before his birth. But destiny, he believed, should not feel like a cage. The prince's dreams had changed in recent months. Where once he dreamed of battles, feasts, and the company of kings, now each night showed him the same surreal vision. A vast sea of silver mist, an island haloed by moonlight, and upon that island stood a lion, not a creature of flesh, but one woven entirely from light. Its mane flickered like starlit fire, its eyes burned with wisdom and challenge, and when it roared, its voice became a crown of thunder encircling the world. Sang Nila would awaken with his heart shaking in his chest, the impression of the lion's presence lingering like invisible heat around him. He knew the dream was not merely a dream. The ancient priests had long taught that visions repeating in the same form were messages from the spirits. But what were they telling him, and why him? One morning, after yet another night illuminated by the celestial lion, the prince sought counsel from the royal scholar, an elderly man named Paduka Mahasura, whose beard was white as palm fiber and whose mind was said to be older than the kingdom itself. The dreams continue, Sang Nila confessed, as they stood beneath the shrine of the ancestors. The lion calls to me. Mahasura studied him with sharp, discerning eyes. A lion made of light, he murmured. Such visions belong to those whom fate has not finished shaping. Tell me, my prince, do you feel fear? Sang Nila paused. No, only longing. Then the spirits are summoning you, not warning you, the scholar said. There is land beyond our maps, a place shrouded in mists where the old gods once walked. Perhaps your path lies there. For days after that conversation, the prince could not think of anything else. Court meetings grew dull. Ceremonies dragged on like mud. Even the palace gardens, once his favorite sanctuary, felt too small. The world was vast, and yet he was confined to a single corner of it. Everything changed when news arrived of a distant island known only to fishermen and wandering sailors. They spoke of a mysterious shore where the air shimmered like pearl dust and strange creatures watched from the trees. They called it Temasek, the sea town, a land untouched by kings but watched over by the breath of ancient spirits. The name ignited something deep within Sang Nila. That night, the celestial lion returned to him larger, brighter, its roar echoing through the dream sea with an urgency he had never felt before. When the prince awoke, he did not hesitate. Destiny was no longer a chain around his wrist. It was a horizon calling his name. He requested permission from the Queen Mother to lead an expedition across the waters. Though hesitant, she recognized the fire in her son's eyes, the same fire his ancestors carried when they first forged the empire. After prayers, offerings, and days of preparation, the prince's fleet was ready. On the morning of departure, the harbor was alive with movement. Sailors hoisted white silk sails that billowed like the wings of giant seabirds. Drums thundered across the shore, blessing the journey with rhythm and power. The people gathered to send off their prince, unaware that they were witnessing the beginning of a legend. As the ships pushed away from the docks, Sang Nila stood at the prow, the wind lifting his hair like a dark banner. The sea stretched endlessly before him, blue, dangerous, magnificent. Yet he felt no fear, only anticipation. For several days, the journey went smoothly. The ocean rolled beneath them like a cradle, and the stars guided their path with gentle precision. But on the seventh day, the skies darkened. A storm brewed at the horizon, black as volcanic ash and fast as a charging beast. Winds howled. Waves rose like mountains. Lightning tore open the sky, each flash painting the sea white with terror. "Prince, we must turn back," the captain shouted, but Sang Nila refused. "The lion did not lead me here to retreat." The storm roared, shaking the ships like toys. Water crashed over the deck. Sailors shouted prayers to every god they knew. The prince gripped the rail, refusing to bow to the chaos. Then, just when the storm reached its peak, the impossible happened. A deafening roar split the sky. The ocean around the ship shimmered. The waves fell unnaturally still, as though commanded by an unseen force. And beneath the surface, illuminated by a supernatural glow, the celestial lion appeared, its body vast, shining, and magnificent. It walked across the ocean floor as though the sea were merely a thin curtain of glass. Sang Nila stared, breathless. The sailors fell silent, awe replacing terror. The lion lifted its head, and its blazing eyes met the prince's. Its mane of living light rippled outward, parting the storm clouds above them. For one heartbeat, the world knew peace. Then the vision faded, and the sea resumed its natural rhythm. But the path was now clear. Through the parted clouds, the prince saw land, a hidden island crowned with green hills and shining beaches. The place from his dreams. Temasek, he whispered, the island of destiny. As his fleet sailed toward the radiant shore, Sang Nila felt the weight of the moment settle upon him. The spirits had chosen him, the lion had guided him, and now he was stepping into a land where myth and fate intertwined, a land that would one day bear his legacy. A land destined to become the Lion City. Chapter 2. The Island of Mist and the Footsteps of the Celestial Lion. The first sight of Temasek was unlike anything Sang Nila had ever witnessed. the island rose from the sea, like an emerald dream, its shores shimmering under a veil of pale mist, its forests alive with whispers of ancient spirits. The beaches glowed faintly, as if the sand remembered the footsteps of gods who once walked there. As the fleet approached the coastline, the winds calmed. Birds with feathers like molten bronze circled above the masts, calling out in melodic, unfamiliar tones. Every detail made it clear. This land was no ordinary island. It breathed with the presence of something old, powerful, and waiting. The ships anchored in shallow waters, and the prince stepped onto the shore. The moment his feet touched the sand, a warm pulse traveled through the earth, rushing upward like a greeting from the island itself. He inhaled deeply. The air was rich with the scent of wild orchids and sea salt. "This place, it feels alive," one of the sailors murmured. "It is alive," Sang Nila replied softly. "The spirits dwell here." They began their exploration, moving inland through tall grasses that brushed their waists like curious hands. The jungle's canopy was thick, filtering sunlight into shifting ribbons of gold and green. Leaves rustled, not just with wind, but with unseen watchers. Along their path, they discovered strange markings carved into stone swirls, feline shapes, and symbols that resembled the burning mane of the celestial lion. These were not human carvings. They belonged to an older civilization, one lost beneath the weight of time. The further they journeyed, the more Sang Nila felt the lion's presence stirring within the land. It was as if the great beast's spirit lingered in every tree root and in every echo of bird call. By midday, they reached a clear stream that ran like a silver ribbon through the forest. The water was so pure that the stones at the bottom sparkled like tiny jewels. The prince knelt beside it, touching the surface. The water rippled outward, forming a brief, shimmering shape, the outline of a lion's paw. The sailors gasped. "The guardian watches us," Sang Nila smiled. "It welcomes us." After replenishing their supplies, they continued deeper into the island. As they walked, the prince noticed something extraordinary. The mist followed them. It curled gently around his shoulders, then parted before his steps, as though guiding him along a hidden trail. Near sunset, they reached a vast clearing. Towering trees formed a natural cathedral around a field of jade-green grass. At the center stood a massive stone monolith carved in the shape of a lion's head. Moss covered its mane, but its eyes smooth, polished stone seemed alive, glinting with ancient intelligence. The men fell silent. Sang Nila approached the monolith. "This is the heart of the island," he whispered, "the place where the guardian last walked." As he reached out to touch the stone, the earth trembled. The clearing filled with a low, resonant hum, like the purring of a giant beast beneath the ground. The monolith glowed faintly. Vines curled backward, as if in reverence. Suddenly, the air rippled, and a figure emerged from the shadows. It was a woman, tall, graceful, with raven-black hair and eyes like molten amber. Her garments shimmered like woven moonlight, and in her presence, even the trees seemed to bow. "Prince of Shrevisia," she said, her voice flowing like water. "The island has whispered your name." The men instinctively knelt, sensing her power. Sang Nila remained standing, though his heart trembled with awe. "Who are you?" he asked. "I am Sang Sura, guardian spirit of Temasek," she replied, "daughter of the celestial lion, protector of these lands since the age of dawn, a spirit, a being born of myth." The prince bowed deeply. "The lion guided me here. I seek to understand my purpose." Sang Sura studied him for a long moment. The lion does not reveal himself to mortals without reason. You have been chosen. But to claim the destiny waiting for you here, you must prove your worth. What must I do? You must face the trials of the guardian. The jungle grew still, as though listening. There are 3 trials, she continued. Each one will test a part of your soul: courage, wisdom, and heart. Fail, and the island will reject you. Succeed, and Temasek will accept you as its ruler, chosen by spirits, crowned by fate. The sailors looked at one another nervously, but Sang Nila's resolve did not waver. I accept. Good, Sang Sura said, her amber eyes glowing brighter. Your first trial begins now. The world around them dissolved into swirling golden mist. The trees stretched upward into infinite darkness. The ground vanished. Sang Nila found himself standing alone on a narrow stone bridge suspended above nothingness. A cold wind howled. In the distance, a pair of burning eyes appeared. He recognized instantly the Lion of Light. Its form materialized from the void, massive and radiant. It paced across the bridge, each step shaking the stone beneath the prince's feet. Your first trial, a disembodied voice echoed, is the trial of courage. Stand your ground. Do not flee, the lion roared, unleashing a storm of light. The prince's knees trembled, but he forced himself to meet its gaze. This was the being from his dreams. The guardian who had saved his fleet, the spirit who called him to this island. He took a step forward. The lion roared again, louder, fierce, but Sang Nila did not falter. He inhaled deeply, lifted his chin, and shouted into the storm, I am not afraid. At his cry, the beast stopped. Its blazing form flickered, then softened. Slowly, the lion lowered its head, touching the prince's chest with its glowing forehead. A surge of warmth flooded Sang Nila's body. The bridge vanished. The jungle returned. Sang Sura appeared before him. You have passed the trial of courage, she said. The guardian recognizes your spirit. The prince exhaled shakily. His heart still thundered, but not from fear, from triumph. The next trial awaits, she said. Prepare yourself, Sang Nila Utama. Destiny opens its gates only to those who persist. As night fell over Temasek, the prince looked toward the dark forest ahead. The lion had accepted him once, but his journey had only just begun. Chapter 3: The Trial of Wisdom. And the shadow of the silent grove, the night, settled over Temasek like a velvet shroud. Its darkness speckled with silver glimmers from the distant stars. The jungle came alive with nocturnal murmurs, crickets, distant birds, the soft rustling of unseen creatures moving beneath ferns as tall as men. But within the sacred clearing where Sang Nila stood, all was still. The monolith of the lion watched him with unblinking stone eyes, as though measuring the courage he had earned only hours before. Sang Sura, the guardian spirit of the island, regarded him with a faint smile. The trial of courage was merely the first step, she said. Strength without wisdom is like a ship without a compass. Your second trial begins at dawn. The prince bowed respectfully. Tell me what awaits, guardian. Not yet, she replied. Wisdom is not given, it is revealed. You will know the path when the sun touches the silent grove. The silent grove. Even the name tugged at something deep, ancient and solemn. Sang Sura disappeared into swirling mist, leaving the prince and his men alone beneath the stars. The sailors murmured among themselves, voices tinged with awe and fear. Some questioned whether they should turn back. Others insisted that their prince's destiny was worth any risk. Sang Nila climbed a small rise overlooking the clearing. The moon hung low and radiant, bathing the island in blue-white light. He felt the lion's presence faint, but steady like a heartbeat beneath the earth. It calmed him, grounding his resolve. "We continue," he whispered to the wind. "No trial will turn me away." At dawn, the jungle awoke with a roar of color and sound. Bright birds burst from the treetops. A warm golden light spilled through the canopy, guiding them along a winding path. Sang Nila led the way, with only the rhythm of the forest and his instincts to rely on. Hours passed before the landscape shifted. The trees grew unnaturally tall and close together, their trunks smooth like polished stone. Vines hung like curtains. The air thickened with a heavy, expectant silence. One of the sailors whispered, "Is this the silent grove?" It was. No animal calls, no wind, no rustling leaves. Even their footsteps seemed muffled, swallowed by the earth itself. At the heart of the grove stood a structure unlike any other on the island, a spiraling stone labyrinth etched with glowing symbols. The central pillar pulsed with faint white light, like a distant star trapped in crystal. Sang Sura appeared beside the pillar, her form shimmering with authority. "This," she declared, "is the trial of wisdom. The labyrinth is alive. It can sense your intentions. Within its walls lie illusions crafted from memory and truth. To find the center, you must distinguish what is real from what is false." The sailors shivered. Sang Nila, however, stepped forward without hesitation. "I am ready." Sang Sura extended her hand, and the entrance of the labyrinth shifted open with a low groan. "Remember, Prince, the mind is a battlefield. Only clarity and humility will guide you." He entered. The labyrinth swallowed him in darkness. The walls glowed faintly, revealing pathways that twisted and branched like veins of living stone. His footsteps echoed, breaking the unnatural quiet. Every direction looked identical. Every turn felt designed to confuse. Then the illusions began. A whisper reached him, soft, familiar. "Sang Nila." He spun around. The Queen Mother stood behind him, her face pale with worry. "My son, return home," she pleaded. "This island wants to consume you. The sea nearly killed you once. I will not lose you to ghosts and stones." His heart tightened. She looked exactly as she had on the morning of his departure, down to the trembling hands. But something was wrong. Her feet cast no shadow. "This is not real," he said firmly. The Queen Mother dissolved into drifting mist. The labyrinth hummed in approval. As he moved deeper, the illusions grew stronger. The next figure to appear was his closest friend and warrior, Bhadra, who had remained in Srivijaya to guard the kingdom. "Sang Nila," Bhadra cried, running toward him. "Your brother has seized the throne. Your mother is imprisoned. You must return at once." The prince's breath caught. Could this be true? He narrowed his eyes. "If you truly are Bhadra, tell me the name of the river we swore our oath beside." The illusion hesitated and vanished. The labyrinth shifted its walls, opening new paths. "You cannot deceive me," Sang Nila whispered. But the labyrinth was only beginning. Suddenly, the walls darkened, and the air grew cold. A shadow rose from the ground, towering, monstrous, shapeless. Eyes like burning coals stared at him. "You are nothing," it growled, its voice echoing like thunder. "A child chasing myths. You cannot rule a land of spirits." Fear clawed at him. The shadow swelled larger, filling the corridor. But Sang Nila remembered Sang Sura's warning. "Wisdom is revealed, not given." He inhaled, steadying himself. "You are my doubt. he whispered. Nothing more. He stepped forward through the shadow. It shattered like smoke. Light flooded the corridor, and the path ahead straightened. He had reached the labyrinth's center. In the heart of the grove stood a pool of crystal water, reflecting a perfect image of the sky. Sang Sura waited beside it, her expression serene. "You have done well, Sang Nila Utama," she said. "The labyrinth tested your greatest weakness, the illusions of the mind. Many wander eternally in their fears and desires. You did not." Sang Nila bowed. "My mind wavered, but did not break. That is wisdom," Sang Sura replied. "Not the absence of fear, but the clarity to see through it." She gestured toward the pool. "Look." The water shifted to reveal a vision, the island of Temasek, its forests glowing under the rising sun. The symbol of the lion burned above it, radiant and powerful. "This land calls for a ruler who sees truth even in uncertainty. You are that ruler." The water faded back to its calm surface. "2 trials completed," Sang Sura said. "But your path grows harder. The final trial awaits, the trial of heart. Only those who carry compassion, loyalty, and sacrifice in equal measure can succeed." Sang Nila felt the weight of her words. Courage had tested his spirit, wisdom had tested his mind, but heart was the trial that defined kings. "What must I do?" he asked. Sang Sura's expression darkened slightly. "The final trial will not be faced alone. Those you cherish most will stand beside you, and the island will judge the truth of your heart." A distant rumble echoed through the grove, as if the land itself was awakening for the next challenge. "Prepare yourself, Prince," she said. "The island watches." And as dusk crawled across the sky, Sang Nila felt the pulse of the celestial lion beneath the earth, steady, powerful, expectant. The 3rd trial awaited. Chapter 4: The Trial of Heart and the Choice of the Tides. Dawn bled slowly into the jungle, turning every leaf and petal into a small coin of light. Sang Nila woke before his men, the aftertaste of the labyrinth's illusions still on his breath. He felt steadier now. The trial of courage had steadied his legs, and the labyrinth had cleared his mind. But Sang Sura's words about the trial of heart weighed on him like a promise and a threat both. He found her at the monolith before the sun had climbed the canopy, her silhouette silvered by mist. Beside her stood several islanders, not the warlike sort, but caretakers, fishermen with calloused hands, a healer whose palms smelled of herbs, a small child who watched Sang Nila with unconcealed curiosity. The simplicity of the people cut into the prince's royal training. For the first time, he saw that rulership was more than banners and courtly blessing. It was also the quiet work of tending nets, mending roofs, forgiving small offenses, and speaking kindly to fearful children. "The final trial will shape what kind of ruler you would be," Sang Sura said. "Courage proves a warrior, wisdom proves a planner, heart proves a sovereign. It asks not what you would do for glory, but what you would give away and whom you would love when easy choices end." Sang Nila nodded. He had expected tests of skill or riddles. The trial of heart looked suspiciously mundane. Sang Sura smiled without pity. "You will be judged by what you choose to save when everything you love cannot be saved at once." She guided him toward the shore, where a rope line marked a seam in the sand. Beyond it, the sea seemed ordinary. Within it, the water licked the feet of an ancient stone altar, inset with concentric circles like the eye of a sleeping thing. "Wait here," Sang Sura instructed, and disappeared into the mist. Hours passed, and the island's ordinary life went on. Women pounded rice, nets were mended, children chased one another. Among the penmen, Sang Nila had time to listen and learn. The healer, Leela, who tended wounds with poultices and stories. Rami, a fisherman whose boat had belonged to his father. A young widow, Mina, who kept a lamp burning for a husband lost to a far sea. They spoke of ordinary griefs, the crop that failed one year, the child taken by fever another. Sang Nila realized the islanders counted their losses and continued anyway. They called it endurance. He called it invisible courage. Midday heat cracked across the beach, and from the horizon rose a trembling. A sound like a great animal wakened. The sea boiled with an unnatural surge. From the east, a dark cloud rolled toward the island, not like storm, but like a moving shadow. Men shouted as the tide rose with speed no fisherman could understand. Ropes creaked, boats strained, mothers grabbed children. Sang Sura returned, but she did not look at the prince first. She went to Mina and placed a palm on her forehead, like a blessing. "The sea tests its claim," she said softly. "Part of the island will be called away. The tides demand balance. Sometimes they take to give. But a leader is measured by the choice he makes when the sea offers a bargain." The shadow swelled into two things at once. A whirl of dark foam that sought to swallow the low shore, and a cold voice from beneath, ancient as reef and patient as time. "You walk the line of spirit and man," it said. "Your plane determined whether you lead. Choose which to spare. The sacred altar at the heart of the strand, where the lion's foot rests and the island's vows are bound, or the huts where these people dwell. Save one, and the other will be claimed." Panic rose like birds. Farmers scrambled for their tools. Children clung to mothers. The fishermen ran to tie boats to masts that were already straining. Sang Nila felt blood in his ears. This choice was not chess or counsel. It demanded an immediate answer. A moral muscle pulled sharp and raw. He thought of the monolith and the lion's forehead that had warmed him after his first trial. He thought of the vanished Queen Mother, whose tears had seemed so heavy in the labyrinth. He thought of his kingdom, of a throne that might one day be fixed by his actions here. Above all, he thought of the widow who kept a lamp for a man who never returned, of the laughter of the children in the field, of the healer who knelt without asking reward. The altar was old. Its stones remembered kings and vows. But those stones would not wail. The women and children might. Sang Nila moved as if in a dream. He called to his sailors and the fishermen and the strongest islanders. "Form a chain," he shouted, "from the first hut to the edge of the reef. Bring what you can. Save them first." They obeyed. Men formed lines. Mothers passed children. The old bent where they could. Sang Nila ran between them, lifting a babe with arms more practiced at greeting ambassadors than hauling nets, passing him forward into safety. The dark tide rose faster now, twisting, reaching for the altar with greedy foam. The islanders cried out, "You abandoned the altar." Some accused sacrilege, others wailed, but the chain did not falter. Sang Nila dragged a fallen mother by her shawl and handed her off. He felt mouths press kisses into his palms in thanks, small, human, immediate. Sang Sura watched from the monolith, tears in her eyes. The sea roared like an old god displeased, and for a breath the waves struck the sacred altar. It hit the stone and shivered. The altar did not sink. The lion's marker remained, but it cracked. A small shard split loose and washed away. A sob escaped from the healer as the veil of the island seemed too thin. Then, slowly, the tide receded. The dark foam shrank where the chain had been. The island's people were safe, shivering on the sand. The altar lay scarred, but still in place, a notch missing like a memory. "The choice is made," the sea said. "Softer now. You have sacrificed permanence for life. Your heart weighs true." Sang Sura came and took his hand. She lifted the shard that had been saved from the altar in the hands of a small child and held it between them. "Leaders are not carved from vows alone," she told him. "They are made of the lives they protect." Word spread quickly. The islanders came to him that evening, offering fish and woven mats and songs. They no longer knelt in fear of a foreign prince. They saw him as flesh and as choice, a man who had lifted their children out of danger while the stone quivered for him. That night, when stars pricked the black cloth of the sky, Sang Nila walked alone to the seaward edge of the clearing. Beneath his feet, he felt the slow heartbeat of the island, and beneath that, the faint, steady pulse of the celestial lion. The island had tested him, not with the strength of arms or cunning, but with his willingness to place others above a thing of legend. He had chosen people. In the morning, Sang Sura led him to the monolith. The islanders were gathered, their faces raw with sea salt and laughter and grief for what had been lost. "You have proven heart," she declared, raising her voice so every ear could hear. "The lion bows to a sovereign who bears the weight of his people first." The lion's monolith shivered, and for a moment, light like breath spilled from its carved eyes. In the warmth of that light, the prince felt something pass into him, a quiet covenant. He was no longer only Sang Nila Utama of Srivijaya. He was now the chosen of Temasek, a name that would be spoken for generations. As he accepted the island's trust, a small voice piped at his shoulder. The healer's child, the one who had kept the shard, looked up with eyes wide and unafraid. "You saved us," the child said simply. Sang Nila smiled, the taste of salt and responsibility on his tongue. "I will keep you safe," he replied, and meant it. Beyond the trees, where the tide still whispered its old language, the sea smiled in the slow exhale of a giant. The trial of heart had ended, and with it, Sang Nila's first true coronation in the court of living people rather than the halls of stone. But Sang Sura's face held a shadow. "Yet, there are those who will test you still," she said. "The island has accepted you, but the wider world may not. The lion has chosen a guardian. Now you must learn to be a ruler." Sang Nila felt a new weight settle on his shoulders, softer than armor, yet far more binding. It was the weight of promises made to faces in the dark, and to children whose names he would someday know by heart. Night thickened. The island slept with one more set of living breaths beneath it, and far out at sea, the first lights of returning ships burned like questions on the horizon. Chapter 5: The Founding of Temasek and the Shadow on the Horizon. The morning after the trial of heart broke clean and gold over the island. Birds threaded the sky with bright cries. The tide rested gentle and tame against the sand, as though ashamed of the fury it had brought the day before. Sang Nila stood at the shore, long before the fishermen launched their nets, watching the sun breathe color into the world. The weight in his chest felt different, now not a burden, but an oath. Behind him, the islanders readied the clearing for a gathering. Woven mats were laid in circles. Fruit baskets and clay jars of fresh water lined the edges. Elders lit incense that smelled of sandalwood and memory. Today, the island would recognize the prince not as a guest, but as a rightful leader. Sang Sura appeared as the last of the preparations settled. Her staff, always glowing faintly, reflected the day's first ray. "The island speaks your name freely now," she said. "But Temasek will be more than this island. You must choose how it will grow." Sang Nila nodded. Dreams of a port, a settlement, a sanctuary for sailors and merchants had begun forming in his mind. A city where people of many seas could find shelter. But dreams, he knew, needed stone, hands, and courage to become real. When the islanders gathered beneath the monolith, Sang Sura stepped forward to address them. "This land has tested him," she said, her voice rising above the crowd. "And he has chosen life above relics, compassion above power. By this, the lion blesses him." A warm wind swept the clearing as the carved eyes of the monolith shimmered faintly again. Some islanders gasped, others knelt. Sang Nila did not reach for glory. He bowed his head like a servant, accepting responsibility. Then he spoke. "I have taken your trials, and in them I have seen your hearts. If you will have me, I will build Temasek with you not as your ruler above, but as your guardian beside you." A murmur rose, soft agreement like cloth brushed by fingers. Rami, the fisherman, raised his net-worn hand first. "We will follow you," sang Nila, one by one. Others followed. And thus, beneath the watch of the monolith, Temasek was born, not from conquest, but from a shared vow. Building the first city, the days that followed were filled with work. Sang Nila joined the men hauling timber, the women weaving sails and roofs, and the youth gathering stones from the riverbeds. Sweat darkened his tunic, calluses formed along his hands. Those who once doubted him now laughed at his poor but earnest attempts at knot tying or rowing. They built houses first, then store huts, then a lookout tower of sturdy wood that overlooked the strait. Smoke rose from new hearths each night until the forest glowed with dozens of small lights, each one a proof of life reclaimed from danger. Temasek was taking its first breath. Yet even as the city grew, Sang Nila felt a strange pressure in the air. The island was peaceful, but peace, he sensed, was never permanent. And he was right. The strange lights at sea, it was the healer Layla who first noticed the change. "The waves are uneasy," she said, as they walked along the shore one evening. "They keep whispering the same word arrive." The next night, the fishermen returned early, faces pale. "There are lights on the water," Rami said. "Too many to be fishing boats. They do not move like traders." Sang Sura consulted the monolith. The carved lion's head flickered with a soft, uneasy pulse. "They are coming," she murmured. "A kingdom across the sea has heard of the celestial lion's blessing. They believe the power should be theirs." Sang Nila felt a cold wind curl around his spine. He had known threats would come. He simply did not expect them so soon. "Will they bring war?" he asked. Sang Sura met his gaze. "They will bring a test, the omen of the white heron the following dawn." A white heron larger than any bird Sang Nila had ever seen landed before the monolith. Its wings shimmered with moonlit silver. Slowly, it extended 1 foot and dropped something at the prince's feet. A shard of stone, a piece of the altar broken during the trial of heart. But now it shone brighter than any pearl, etched with a new symbol, a lion's claw crossed with a foreign crest. Sang Sura inhaled sharply. "This is a warning. The kingdom on the horizon carries an emblem that echoes this mark." They seek the lion's shard. Sang Nila wrapped the shard in cloth and held it close. Then let them come. Temasek will not bow to greed. The heron bowed deeply, reverently, and took flight, disappearing into the clouds as though it had been woven from them. The first threat to Temasek, as evening fell, the lights on the sea grew brighter. Ship 6, then 10, then more crept into the horizon like a strand of fireflies. Drums echoed across the water. The people gathered behind Sang Nila, fear and trust mingling in their eyes. Rami whispered, "What do we do, Tuan Prince?" Sang Nila squared his shoulders. "We protect our home," he said. "We protect each other, and we face them standing." Sang Sura stood beside him, staff glowing with pale fire. "Your next trial begins, O guardian of the Lion City." The waves rolled ashore, restless, waiting. And in the distance, the approaching fleet sent a horn call that shook the beach. The first challenge to the newborn Temasek had arrived. Chapter 6. The Fleet of the Eastern Kingdom and the Lions Roar over the waves. The first horn blast from the approaching fleet rolled across the sea like a wounded animal's cry. Fishermen dropped their nets, children clung to their mothers' sarongs, and the young city of Temasek seemed to shrink beneath the gathering dusk. But Sang Nila did not waver. His eyes followed the distant silhouettes slicing the water sleek. Angular vessels painted with crimson streaks that glowed like open wounds against the evening sky. Behind him, Sang Sura stepped forward, pressing her staff lightly into the sand. Its tip glowed, mirroring the flicker of the fires on the approaching ships. "These are not merchants," she murmured. "They sail with intent. Their oars beat in perfect rhythm, an army's rhythm." Sang Nila nodded. "Then we welcome them, not as traders, but as trespassers." But even as he said the words, his mind raced. Temasek was young. Its people were brave, but they were not trained soldiers. Their walls were newly built, their weapons simple, their defenses untested. The Eastern Kingdom, however, was known for its disciplined fleet and its hunger for expansion. Rumors had long whispered of their ambition to command the straits and seize any land blessed with divine favor, and Temasek, gifted by the celestial lion, was precisely such a land. The envoy arrives, a smaller boat, broke from the fleet and glided toward the shore. The islanders parted as the vessel grounded itself in the sand. A single man stepped out to Adel, adorned in dark, lacquered armor, and carrying an obsidian spear carved with wave motifs. He removed his helm, revealing sharp eyes and an expression carved from stone. "I am General Varuna Seta, envoy of the Eastern Kingdom," he declared. "By order of my king, I come to demand audience with the one called Sang Nila, Utama." Sang Nila stepped forward. "I am he. State your purpose." Varuna's eyes flickered with interest, though his lips did not soften. "Our king has observed strange lights upon this island, lights akin to divine blessing. He believes your land holds a relic that belongs to the rightful rulers of the sea, the shard." Sang Nila felt its weight beneath his tunic. "And if I do not surrender this relic?" Varuna gave a small bow, polite but cold. "Then the fleet behind me will reclaim it by force." Gasps rippled through the islanders. Sang Sura's staff flared with white light, but Sang Nila raised a hand to stop her. "Tell your king," the prince said steadily, "that Temasek bows to no foreign claim of destiny." Varuna's gaze hardened. "Then at dawn, we will speak again through the roar of cannons." He stepped back into his boat. As it pushed off, Sang Sura exhaled quietly. "You have refused war, but war has not refused you. Preparing for the storm, Temasek erupted into motion. Men carried baskets of stones to the lookout tower. Women filled jars with water and took positions with spears sharpened from bamboo. Older boys climbed the trees, lining the coast with slings, ready to strike from the shadows. Even the elders, frail yet unyielding, gathered in a circle to chant protective invocations in the old tongue. Sang Nila walked among them, placing a steadying hand on shoulders tense with fear. "Courage," he said softly. "Temasek stands because we stand together." When he reached the shoreline, Sang Sura was waiting. The battle will not be won by strength alone. Temasek must awaken the guardian that sleeps beneath it. "The lion?" Sang Nila asked. "The lion," she confirmed. They stood before the monolith. Its carved mane seemed to shift in the torchlight. Sang Sura lifted her staff and placed it against the stone. "Speak to it. The guardian has watched your trials. Now let it know your resolve." Sang Nila laid his palm upon the cool stone. "I do not seek glory," he whispered, "nor dominion. Only to protect the land that accepted me, the people who trusted me. If you guard this island, then lend us your roar." For a moment, nothing happened. The night hummed with wind and distant drums. Then a faint pulse. The monolith breathed light, golden and deep. The ground trembled. From somewhere beneath the island, an answering rumble echoed, a sleeping beast stirring in the dark. Sang Sura's eyes widened. "It hears you." But the awakening was not yet complete. "The fleet advances." Dawn broke, red an omen, the elders whispered. The sea flared like molten iron as the fleet advanced. Drums pounded from the ships, shaking the water. Lines of archers stood ready on the decks. Ballistae were aimed toward the shore. Temasek's defenders lined the beach. Their hearts beat fast, but their spines were straight. Varuna's voice thundered across the strait. "This is your final chance. Surrender the relic hand. Your island will be spared." Sang Nila stepped forward. "This land is not yours to claim. If you seek war, then you will meet it not from a relic, but from the spirit of Temasek itself." Varuna lowered his spear. "So be it," he signaled. The first wave of arrows darkened the sky. "The lion awakens." Sang Sura struck her staff into the ground. A barrier of shimmering light flickered into existence, but it was thin, fragile, already straining beneath the onslaught. "Sang Nila," she cried, "call it now." The prince pulled the shard from beneath his tunic, the fragment of the altar the heron had delivered. It pulsed with fierce, urgent light. He plunged it into the sand. The earth cracked open. A deafening roar split the air, pure, ancient, unstoppable. The sea rose in towering spirals, ships shuddering as though gripped by invisible claws. Golden light erupted beneath the island, racing across the shore like wildfire. From the fissure, a colossal form surged upward, made of moonlit stone and burning spirit. The celestial lion, guardian of Temasek, awakened at last, its eyes blazing with judgment. The fleet trembled visibly. Even Varuna staggered back. The lion planted itself between Temasek and the invading ships, opened its jaws, and unleashed a roar that split the waves. A wall of water rose, spiraling like a whirlpool, turned in stout. The front line of ships rocked violently, some tipping sideways, others helplessly spinning. Varuna's command dissolved into chaos. Sang Nila raised his fist. Temasek stands. The defenders roared with him. Chapter 7: The Battle of the Shattered Tide. The sea had had barely settled from the celestial lion's roar when the fleet of the Eastern Kingdom regrouped. The horizon burned with the sharp glint of steel and the disciplined formation of oars. A wave of enemies determined to claim what Temasek had earned. Sang Nila stood on the shore, his cloak whipping in the wind, eyes fixed on the advancing shadows of ships. The people behind him were tense but unyielding, ready to defend the land they had begun to call home. Sang Sura approached, her staff glowing faintly in the dawn light. "This battle," she said softly, "will test everything you have learned. Courage will meet fury, wisdom will face deception, and the heart will confront its truest fear." Sang Nila clenched the shard of the altar against his chest. The fragment pulsed warmly, as if affirming that the lion's blessing was still with him. "Then we fight not for conquest," he said, "but for the people who trusted us, and the island that chose us." The first wave of the enemy ships reached the shallows, and arrows rained down upon Temasek's defenders. The villagers fired slings and small crossbows, but they were not enough to halt the disciplined onslaught. The waves themselves seemed to join the enemy, tossing some of Temasek's newly built boats aside, as if testing their resolve. The people cried out, but Sang Nila moved among them with steady hands and a commanding voice, giving instructions, lifting spirits, and showing that fear was to be met with action, not despair. From the fissure where the celestial lion had emerged, a low rumble grew, vibrating through the sand beneath their feet. The lion's eyes glowed brighter than the sun, and its roar summoned a tidal surge that twisted around the enemy fleet. Water rose in violent spirals, crashing into the ships, overturning smaller vessels, and sending the disciplined ranks into chaos. But the Eastern Kingdom's generals were clever, adjusting their formation, showing that this battle was far from over. Sang Nila knew that raw force alone would not win. The lion could repel the fleet temporarily, but it could not protect Temasek indefinitely if their tactics remained predictable. He turned to his closest allies, the healer who had saved the children, the fisherman who first guided him through the reefs, and the widowed mother who had taught him patience in the labyrinth. "We fight together," he said. "Use the land, use the trees, use the tides. Let them know that Temasek does not bow." The defenders moved like a living network of shadows and light. Archers took positions atop the lookout towers and the tallest trees. Slings were aimed at the sails to catch and tear. Fishermen guided submerged reefs to block enemy passage. Women and men worked in synchronized movements, a strategy born not of training but of necessity, intuition, and unity. The Eastern Kingdom's generals, seeing the labyrinthine tactics of Temasek, unleashed their secret weapon, a massive wave of fire-hurling ships, each vessel blazing with pitch and tar, intended to set the island ablaze. Smoke and fire cast a red glare across the water. Villagers scattered, but Sang Nila stood firm. "Focus on the people," he ordered. "Do not let fear take the lead. Protect life first." The celestial lion's roar answered, louder and higher than before. It leaped into the water, its paws striking waves like hammer blows. The burning ships were tossed back by a swirling wall of water and light, extinguishing fire in a spectacle of spray and molten gleam. Yet still, the battle pressed on. Temasek's people were exhausted, yet they did not falter. Hours passed with relentless clashes of wave, steel, and spirit. Sang Nila led from the front, lifting children from fallen boats, guiding elders to safety, and standing as a symbol of courage in the storm. At one critical moment, a massive ship threatened to break through their defenses. Without hesitation, Sang Nila waded into the surging waters, raising the shard high. It pulsed brightly, sending a beam of light like a spear toward the ship. The vessel shuddered, split its own mast, and veered back into chaos, as if acknowledging that it faced a power greater than any ordinary army. The tide began to calm as the sun descended. The fleet had lost its cohesion. Sailors and soldiers alike trembled before the might of the island and the celestial lion. Sang Nila's voice rose above the noise. Temasek stands. Retreat or face the wrath of a united people and their guardian. Varuna, commander of the fleet, saw that the battle was lost. The ships retreated, dragging the water with them like a tide of shadows dissipating into night. The survivors carried tales of a lion roaring across the waves, of a prince whose courage shone like sunlight on the water, and of an island whose people refused to bow. By nightfall, the beach was quiet once more. The lion returned to the fissure beneath the monolith, its eyes dimming to a soft glow. Sang Nila walked among his people, checking for injuries, offering water and comfort. Though weary, the islanders' eyes sparkled with relief and pride. They had faced the storm and emerged unbroken. Sang Sura approached him in the glow of twilight. You have proven that Tamasek's strength is more than weapons or walls. It is the courage, wisdom, and heart of its people and of its guardian. Sang Nila looked to the horizon. The Eastern Kingdom had gone, but he knew their envy and ambition would return. We will be ready, he said, and Temasek will remain free. The islanders cheered, their voices echoing under the moonlit sky. Fires were lit along the shore, illuminating the monolith, the celestial lion, and the prince who had led them through fire, water, and fear. In that night, Tamasek's name became more than a place. It became a promiser, city of courage, a home of unity, and a kingdom protected by heart, wisdom, and the celestial roar of a guardian who would never sleep. Chapter 8: The Gathering of Allies and the Threat Beyond the Strait. The night after the battle, the island of Temasek breathed in a fragile calm. Fires flickered along the shore, casting golden shadows across the sand and the newly repaired houses. Sang Nila walked among his people, listening to their stories of courage and fear, of small acts of heroism and the shared relief of survival. Yet beneath the triumph lay a quiet tension. He knew that the Eastern Kingdom would return, and soon. Sang Sura approached him at the monolith, her staff glowing faintly in the moonlight. The islanders trust you now, she said, but victory alone does not secure a kingdom. You must find allies, those who share the sea and the stars, those who understand that Temasek is more than a prize. Sang Nila nodded. Where do we start? Who would risk aid for a fledgling island against a mighty fleet? She gestured to the horizon. Across the strait lie trading ports and small kingdoms. Some will see value in an ally, others in gold or tribute. You must seek those whose hearts are aligned with yours, whose loyalty is earned, and whose strength can balance the tides to come. The envoys of Temasek. At dawn, Sang Nila selected a small band of trusted advisors: Rami the fisherman, Layla the healer, and a few of the island's elders, and prepared a swift vessel for travel across the strait. Their mission was to reach neighboring ports and islands, to request support and form bonds that could deter further aggression. The journey was not easy. Storm clouds gathered over the channel, whipping wind and spray into the faces of the voyagers. Yet each wave seemed less threatening than the uncertainty of diplomacy. Sang Nila studied each village and port as they passed. observing leaders in marketplaces, listening to the rhythms of trade, and discerning where alliances could be forged. At a trading port nestled among jagged cliffs, Sang Nila's small party was met with suspicion. Merchants barred their doors, and warriors eyed their vessel with spears ready. Sang Nila stepped forward, holding the shard of the altar high. Its light shimmered in the morning sun, and the people gasped at its celestial glow. "This land is blessed by the lion," he declared. "Temasek seeks not conquest, but friendship and mutual protection. Join us, and the sea between us will be a bond, not a battlefield." The elders of the port, impressed by the prince's courage and the shard's power, agreed to listen. Discussions lasted for days. Temasek offered trade, shared knowledge, and promise of mutual defense. In return, they received commitments of ships, supplies, and watchful eyes along the strait. The rumor of a new threat, even as allies were gathered. News arrived from the western shores. A mysterious figure had been seen traveling through the islands beyond the strait. Cloaked in shadows, he spoke of the Eastern Kingdom's vengeance and whispered rumors of a hidden army gathering in secret. Sailors spoke of ghostly lights along uninhabited beaches and strange fires burning at night, always extinguished before dawn. Sang Nila's heart tightened. The Eastern Kingdom had been repelled once, but shadows lingered. He returned to the monolith, placing the shard carefully in its carved hollow. The celestial lion's eyes glowed faintly, and a soft vibration passed through the ground. "They are not alone," Sang Sura said. "Someone beyond them watches. The threat is greater than a fleet. You must prepare Temasek, not only to fight, but to survive the unseen." Sang Nila's jaw tightened. "Then we will train, we will fortify, and we will watch. Temasek will not be caught unaware, the bond of the lion's people." Returning to Temasek, Sang Nila brought news of alliances and support. The islanders welcomed the envoys with curiosity and cautious hope. Merchants from other islands arrived bearing gifts, new tools, and provisions. Craftsmen offered skills to repair boats and build defenses. Warriors from allied ports came to learn the ways of the celestial lion's guardians, training under Sang Nila's direction and the guidance of the village elders. Together, they reinforced the shoreline with stone and timber, created lookouts across the tallest hills, and established a signaling system to alert of approaching ships. The people of Temasek were no longer isolated. They were part of a network that spanned the strait, bound by trust, strategy, and the presence of the guardian lion. The night of the whispering winds one night, under a crescent moon, a whispering wind brought news from distant waters. From the edge of the strait, glowing lights moved in coordinated patterns. Sang Nila and Sang Sura observed from the monolith, their eyes fixed on the distant horizon. "The Eastern Kingdom has not forgotten," Sang Sura said, "but these lights, they are something new. Perhaps spies, perhaps scouts. Their numbers are uncertain." Sang Nila held the shard close. "Then Temasek will remain vigilant. We will meet them as our people, our allies, and the lion who protects us." He turned to the assembled islanders and envoys. "Tomorrow, we begin a new phase," he said. "Not just defense, but readiness. Tamasek's people must be prepared to act swiftly, to protect one another, and to honor the trust we have built. This is our promise to the sea and to the lion." The people nodded, understanding that the calm of the night was only temporary. Tamasek's struggle was far from over, but its foundation built on courage, unity, and the heart of its people was stronger than any fleet. A silent omen as the night deepened. The celestial lion emerged from the monolith's hollow, stretching and flexing its golden limbs. Its eyes scanned the horizon, flickering with awareness of distant threats. A silent roar echoed across the strait, more felt in the chest than heard, carrying both a warning and a vow. Sang Nila stood beside the lion, feeling its pulse beneath the sand. "We have allies now," he whispered. But the true test, beyond the strait, the shadows of unseen enemies waited. Yet Temasek, under the guidance of the celestial lion and the vigilance of its people, would not bow to fear. Chapter 9: The Ambush at the Strait and the Secret of the Hidden Cove. The strait lay still beneath the first light of dawn, a deceptive calm that belied the tension in the air. Sang Nila stood at the lookout atop the tallest hill, the shard of the altar clutched firmly in his hands. Beyond the waters, the horizon shimmered faintly, small shapes moving like shadows, too deliberate to be ordinary fishing boats. Sangsura appeared at his side, her eyes narrowed. "They have learned patience," she said. "The Eastern Kingdom will strike where we least expect it. But there is another presence here, someone hiding, observing. They may not be enemy, but their intentions are unknown." Sang Nila nodded. "Then we prepare for both an ambush and a surprise ally. Temasek cannot afford hesitation. The fleet moves." The Eastern Kingdom's vessels advanced with stealth, hugging the curvature of the strait. Rami and the allied captains reported every shift of sail, every shimmer of movement. The people of Temasek, though still young in martial skill, had learned quickly. They positioned nets across shallow waters to trap the enemy, set small fires to signal their scouts, and lined the cliffs with archers trained in the art of ambush. As the fleet reached the narrowest part of the strait, it became clear that the Eastern Kingdom had divided its forces. One half approached openly, challenging Temasek's defenses, while the other slipped quietly into a hidden channel. The islanders murmured among themselves, realizing that this battle required more than courage, it demanded cunning. The hidden cove revealed. Sang Nila ordered a small boat to investigate the concealed channel. As they approached, the waves parted gently, revealing a natural cove hidden by towering cliffs and draped in morning mist. Within the cove, he saw movements, small canoes, dozens of them, carefully camouflaged. "They intend to flank us," Sang Nila said. "But there is more than that. Something strange in the water." A sudden shimmer rippled beneath the waves, as if the sea itself were alive. Sangsura raised her staff, tracing a pattern of light over the water. Slowly, a figure emerged, a woman, tall and radiant, her hair like liquid night and eyes reflecting the depths of the ocean. She stepped onto a submerged rock, and the water rose around her without spilling. "I am Maya of the Hidden Cove," she said, her voice carrying across the channel. "I have watched your courage and the protection of the lion. The fleet you face is cunning, but you are not alone. I will aid Temasek if you are worthy of my trust." Sang Nila lowered the shard, allowing its light to shine between them. "We seek life, protection, and unity, not conquest," he replied. "If your allegiance is true, then we welcome your help." Maya nodded once. The water calmed, and from the cove emerged dozens of her people, skilled in rowing and stealth. They moved silently, ready to strike where the enemy would least expect it. The ambush begins. As the Eastern Kingdom's main fleet closed on Temasek's shore, the islanders and their new allies prepared. Hidden along the cliffs, Maya's warriors positioned themselves to cut off the flanking ships. Temasek's archers aimed from the tree lines and towers, while Sang Nila led the defenders along the beaches. When the fleet entered the narrow channel, it was too late. Maya's canoes swept in from both sides, intercepting the flanking ships. Nets rose from beneath the water, tangling oars and trapping sailors. Arrows flew from hidden vantage points, forcing the enemy into retreat. The Eastern Kingdom's commanders shouted orders, but confusion had already taken root. From the shoreline, Sang Nila raised the shard high. Its light pulsed like a heartbeat, illuminating the chaos. The celestial lion emerged from the fissure beneath the monolith, leaping into the surf. Its roar shook the water, sending waves that rocked the enemy ships and scattered the remaining forces. The turning of the tide, the battle raged for hours. Temasek's people and their allies moved in perfect coordination, using the terrain, the tides, and the advantage of the hidden cove to outmaneuver the Eastern Kingdom. Each time an enemy ship attempted to regroup, the shard's light and the lion's roar struck fear into their hearts. Varuna, the commander, realized his forces were faltering. He ordered a retreat toward the open sea, but Maya's warriors cut off escape routes along the flanks. Ships collided, sails tore, and the tide carried many of the Eastern Kingdom's vessels back toward the open waters, battered and broken. Sang Nila watched the enemy scatter, feeling the pulse of the island beneath his feet, the heartbeat of the celestial lion echoing through the sands. For the first time, he realized that Temasek's strength was not in the shard, nor in the lion alone, but in the unity of its people, allies, and the land itself. The aftermath. As the sun set, painting the strait in shades of gold and crimson, the survivors of Temasek gathered on the shore. Their faces were weary, but their eyes shone with pride. Maya approached Sang Nila, her figure glistening from the sea, and offered a hand of friendship. "You have earned our trust," she said. "Temasek is worthy of protection, and we will guard it as we would our own home." Sang Nila accepted her hand, feeling the warmth of alliance and loyalty. The shard glowed softly in his palm, as if approving this union. Sang Sura stood beside them, her eyes reflecting the sea's depth and the lion's eternal vigilance. From the cliffs above, the celestial lion gazed out toward the horizon, its presence a reminder that Temasek had survived the trials of water, war, and cunning enemies. The strait was calm once more, but Sang Nila knew this was only a pause, a brief breath before the next challenge. He turned to his people. "Tonight, we celebrate," he said. "But tomorrow, we remain vigilant." Temasek's story is only beginning. The islanders cheered, raising their voices to the heavens. Fires burned along the beaches, mingling with the glow of the shard and the steady light from the monolith. In that moment, Temasek was more than a city, it was a living promise, a kingdom of courage, heart, and unity, watched over by a lion whose roar could shatter the tide. Chapter 10. The Shadows of the Eastern Kingdom and the Secret of the Lion's Paw. Temasek basked in the afterglow of its victory. Fires still flickered along the beaches, and the people moved with cautious pride, repairing boats, reinforcing defenses, and sharing stories of bravery. Sang Nila walked among them, observing both the joy and the lingering fear in their eyes. Even after triumph, he knew that the Eastern Kingdom's shadow would not disappear entirely. Sang Sura appeared beside him, her staff glowing faintly in the morning sun. "The fleet is scattered, but their ambition remains," she warned. "They have retreated to gather strength. But there is something else, an artifact lost to time, the secret of the lion's paw. Its power can turn the tides of war if it falls into the wrong hands. Sang Nila's brow furrowed. The lion's paw. It is said to be a talisman of strength and foresight, she explained, crafted by the guardians before your time. It lies hidden, waiting for one worthy enough to wield it. The Eastern Kingdom seeks it, knowing it can tip the balance against Temasek, the hidden map. That evening, in the quiet of the monolith's light, Sang Nila examined the shard of the altar once more. Its soft glow illuminated a hidden inscription along the base of the monolith, lines of ancient symbols he had not noticed before. He traced them with his fingers, murmuring the words aloud, until the light pulsed stronger, revealing a map etched faintly into the stone. The lion's paw lies somewhere beyond the northern cliffs, he said. We must find it before the Eastern Kingdom even knows it exists. Sang Sura nodded. But beware, it will not yield its power lightly. Only courage, wisdom, and a pure heart can awaken it. And the journey will test all three, preparing for the quest. The following days were spent in preparation. Temasek's allies from the neighboring islands gathered, bringing supplies, guides, and knowledge of the northern cliffs. Sang Nila selected a trusted group to accompany him, Rami, Layla, and a few of the island's most courageous warriors. Each of them carried not only weapons but hope that they could safeguard their home and confront whatever the Eastern Kingdom might unleash next. As the party departed, the celestial lion emerged from the monolith, watching silently. Its golden eyes reflected the light of the shard, and its roar echoed across the island, a warning to those who would dare threaten Temasek, and a promise to those who would defend it. The northern cliffs, the journey northward, was treacherous. Jagged rocks rose from the water, and the cliffs loomed like ancient sentinels. Waves crashed violently against the shore, testing their courage and skill. Sang Nila led the way, the shard illuminating hidden paths carved by centuries of rain and wind. At one point, they discovered a hidden cave, its entrance masked by vines and tide-worn stone. Within, the air was thick with salt and history. Shadows danced along the walls, and strange symbols glimmered faintly in the shard's light. This must be it, Sang Nila whispered, the resting place of the lion's paw. But as they ventured deeper, the cave shifted. Its walls seemed alive, moving subtly, creating passages that disappeared as soon as they were entered. Sang Sura's staff glowed brighter, illuminating the true path, a narrow corridor leading to a chamber where the air felt heavy with anticipation. The chamber of the lion's paw. The chamber was vast, with high ceilings that echoed every footstep. In its center rested a pedestal carved from a single piece of stone, and upon it the lion's paw talisman shaped like a lion's paw, engraved with ancient runes and glowing faintly with a golden light. Sang Nila approached cautiously. As his hand hovered above the talisman, a voice resonated through the chamber, deep and echoing. Only the heart that is steadfast, the mind that is clear, and the courage that endures may claim the lion's paw. He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility. I do not seek power for myself, he whispered. I seek to protect Temasek, its people, and the land that chose me. The talisman responded. Its glow intensified, stretching light across the chamber. Rami, Layla, and the others stepped closer, their hands steady, hearts united. Slowly, the talisman lifted from the pedestal, moving toward Sang Nila. As it settled into his palm, he felt a surge of energy, strength, tempered with clarity, courage, balanced with wisdom. The lion's paw had accepted him. The shadow stirs. No sooner had Sang Nila grasped the talisman than a tremor shook the chamber. The air outside the cave shifted, and distant drums echoed along the northern cliffs. The Eastern Kingdom had discovered the attempt to claim the lion's paw. Sang Nila turned to his companions. "We must return to Temasek immediately. They will come, and they will not come alone." Sang Sura raised her staff. "The talisman will guide us, but it will also mark us. The next battle will be unlike any before." Tamasek's fate now rests not only on courage, but on strategy, allies, and the lion's paw itself. The party hurried through the cave, the shard and the talisman glowing side by side. Outside, the cliffs were bathed in the last light of dusk, and across the strait, sails appeared. On the horizon, numerous, swift, and filled with intent. Temasek was no longer just defending its home. It was preparing to confront a new era of war, shadow, and destiny. Chapter 11: The Siege of Temasek and the Lion's Last Roar. Dawn broke over Temasek with a pale, trembling light. The island had been alive with preparation for days, but nothing could mask the tension now. On the horizon, dark sails swelled like storm clouds, and the unmistakable formation of the Eastern Kingdom's fleet advanced relentlessly. Their intent was clear: no ambush, no hesitation, no retreat. They sought to lay siege to the city itself. Sang Nila stood atop the cliffs, holding the lion's paw in one hand and the shard of the altar in the other. The talisman's glow pulsed with a rhythm like a heartbeat, connecting him to the celestial lion beneath the monolith. Sang Sura's staff flickered beside him, her expression focused. "This is the final test," she said. "The lion's roar may shatter the waves, but it cannot fight alone. Your people must stand with courage, wisdom, and unity." Sang Nila nodded. "Then we fight not for glory, but for home, for honor, and for the promise of Temasek itself." The first wave. The Eastern Kingdom's ships reached the shallows, and the first wave of attackers leaped onto the beaches. Arrows flew, spears clashed, and the shouts of defenders mingled with the cries of the invaders. Despite their exhaustion from previous battles, Tamasek's people held firm, their confidence buoyed by the presence of allies from neighboring islands, and the silent watch of Maya and her warriors from the hidden cove. Sang Nila moved among them, coordinating defenses, lifting fallen villagers, and calling out orders. Each strike he witnessed, each life he saved, strengthened his resolve. The lion's paw pulsed in his hand, illuminating the battlefield with a golden light, inspiring courage in the hearts of those who had once trembled in fear. The Eastern Kingdom's secret assault, but the Eastern Kingdom had a final weapon: shadowy figures who moved like phantoms across the battlefield. From their ships emerged sorcerers cloaked in dark silk, manipulating the winds and tides, sending waves crashing onto the shore and conjuring illusions of phantom soldiers to terrify Tamasek's defenders. Sang Nila raised the talisman. The lion's paw vibrated with energy, casting beams of light that pierced the illusions and revealed the true enemy. The people of Temasek, guided by the talisman's clarity, fought with renewed precision, cutting through the confusion and striking with unity. Maya's warriors struck the flanks, turning the tide and forcing the shadowy assailants back into retreat. The lion's last roar as the battle reached its peak. The celestial lion emerged from the fissure beneath the monolith, immense and radiant, its golden mane ablaze with divine energy. It roared across the battlefield, a sound that shook the very earth and waves alike. The Eastern Kingdom's soldiers staggered, some fleeing in terror, others frozen by awe. The roar was more than force. It was judgment, warning, and reassurance all at once. Temasek's defenders surged forward, empowered by the lion's presence, the talisman's light, and their own unbreakable resolve. With coordinated strikes, the invaders were driven back, their ranks shattered, and their ships battered by the waves summoned by the lion's might. The turning point. Varuna, commander of the Eastern Kingdom fleet, realized that their campaign had failed. Their magic, their discipline, and their numbers could not overcome the unity and courage of Temasek. With a final, furious command, he signaled retreat. The remaining ships fled, pursued by the tidal currents and the vigilant defenders. Sang Nila lowered the lion's paw, feeling its warmth and the surge of energy. The lion returned to the monolith, its eyes glowing softly before fading into a quiet luminescence. Temasek had survived, but Sang Nila knew the lesson was clear. Guardianship required constant vigilance, and unity alone could not be taken for granted. Aftermath of the siege. The islanders emerged from their defenses, tending to the wounded, repairing the fortifications, and comforting those who had lost loved ones. The allies from neighboring islands helped rebuild Temasek's boats, walls, and watchtowers. Maya remained, pledging continued support and vigilance from the hidden cove. Sang Nila walked among his people, placing a hand on each shoulder, offering words of encouragement. "We have survived not because of power alone," he said, "but because of courage, loyalty, and the bond we share with one another and with the guardian lion. Temasek is more than a city, it is a promise. And as long as we stand together, no force in the seas can break that promise." The dawn of a new era. As the sun rose fully over the horizon, Temasek glimmered like a jewel upon the waves. The monolith shone, the celestial lion rested, and the lion's paw remained safely in Sang Nila's hands. The city had endured the siege and had grown stronger, bound not only by the trials of war, but by the wisdom, courage, and unity of its people. Sang Sura approached, her eyes reflecting both pride and caution. "The Eastern Kingdom will recover," she said softly, "but Temasek has proven that it is a kingdom to be reckoned with. You have led your people with honor, and the lion's roar will echo in legend long after this day." Sang Nila nodded, gazing at the waves that had once carried the threat of destruction. "Let it be known," he said, "that Temasek stands, protected by its people, its allies, and the guardian lion, and that any who would threaten it will face not only the roar of the lion, but the courage of a united people." The islanders cheered, their voices rising in harmony with the sea, the sun, and the light of the monolith. Temasek had survived, and a new chapter was beginning, one of peace, vigilance, and the enduring legacy of the celestial lion. Chapter 12. The Triumph of Temasek and the Eternal Guardian. The sun rose over Temasek with a brilliance that seemed to reflect the city's spirit. After countless trials, battles, and sacrifices, the island had endured. The people moved freely along the beaches and streets, rebuilding homes, fortifying walls, and celebrating the courage that had seen them through the storm. Yet, amid the celebrations, Sang Nila knew that true victory was more than survival. It was the harmony of people, land, and guardian alike. The celestial lion rested atop the monolith, its golden eyes watching over the city like a silent sentinel, though it had roared against fleets and darkness alike. It now stood as a symbol of protection, unity, and the enduring strength of Temasek. The lion's paw pulsed faintly in Sang Nila's hand, a gentle reminder of the power entrusted to the worthy. A kingdom united, Sang Nila walked through the village, greeting his people with humility and pride. Families reunited, warriors tended to the wounded, and children ran along the shore, laughing despite the memories of recent battles. Allies from neighboring islands, including Maya and her Hidden Cove warriors, joined the celebrations, weaving threads of friendship and loyalty into the tapestry of Temasek's future. Sang Sura approached, her staff glowing softly. Temasek is no longer a city at the mercy of others, she said. It has become a beacon. Your leadership, courage, and the unity of your people have transformed it into a kingdom that even the strongest foes will hesitate to challenge. Sang Nila nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility lighten slightly. We have survived because we stood together, he said. Not for power, not for conquest, but for each other and for the home that chose us, honoring the fallen. Despite the triumph, the cost of battle was clear. Temasek's people gathered along the cliffs, where small shrines had been built for those who had fallen. Sang Nila led a solemn procession, placing flowers and offerings at each site. Maya and her warriors joined, lighting lanterns that drifted into the sea, their glow a tribute to courage and sacrifice. Rami and Leela, who had fought alongside the prince from the first skirmish to the final siege, helped organize memorials and rituals, teaching the younger generation the importance of remembrance. Their courage lives in all of us, Leela said softly. It is a flame that cannot be extinguished. Sang Nila placed a hand on the lion's paw. Its warmth spread through him, filling him with a profound sense of purpose. The guardian's presence was eternal, yet it required the vigilance and unity of those it protected. The lion's eternal vigil that evening, as stars began to pierce the twilight sky, the celestial lion stirred. It roared once more, not in anger, but in affirmation, a sound that resonated through the island, the strait, and the hearts of all who had defended Temasek. The roar spoke of triumph, of lessons learned, and of a promise that Temasek would endure against any threat. Sang Nila approached the monolith, holding the lion's paw high. The talisman's light mingled with the stars above, and for a brief moment, it seemed as if the heavens themselves acknowledged the courage of the island's people. The city, the people, the guardian, they are one, Sang Sura said, her voice echoing softly. The trials are over, for now, but the bond you have forged, Sang Nila, is eternal. Sang Nila gazed at the horizon, where the waves glimmered with moonlight. Then we remain vigilant, he said. Temasek stands, and so long as we remember who we are and why we fight, no shadow can overcome us. A legacy secured. The following days were filled with both celebration and renewal. Temasek's people worked tirelessly, repairing damages, reinforcing defenses, and strengthening bonds with allies from other islands. Maya's Hidden Cove warriors trained alongside Temasek's defenders, sharing knowledge of the sea, tactics, and the guardianship of their homeland. Sang Nila convened a council with elders, allies, and village leaders. Together, they established the principles that would guide Temasek into a future of peace, vigilance, unity, courage, and respect for the land and the guardian lion who had protected them through every trial. Temasek's story is no longer just a tale of survival, Sang Nila said. It is a legend of unity, courage, and the enduring spirit of its people, and it will echo across the seas for generations to come. The eternal guardian, as the sun set, bathing Temasek in a golden glow, the celestial lion returned to the monolith's hollow, its eyes dimmed to a soft, eternal luminescence, watching silently over the island. The lion's paw rested safely with Sang Nila, a reminder of the responsibility, courage, and unity required to protect the kingdom. The people gathered on the shore, their voices raised in song, celebrating life, victory, and the bond they shared. Fires reflected in the waves, shimmering alongside the glow of the monolith, the lion's paw, and the enduring presence of the guardian. Temasek had survived storms of war, threats of darkness, and trials that tested every heart. It was now more than an island or a city. It was a kingdom, a promise, and a living legend. Sang Nila stood among his people, looking toward the horizon, feeling the pulse of the land and the sea. The celestial lion's presence was eternal, and Tamasek's courage would echo forever. The epic of the island, its guardian, and its people had reached its culmination, and as long as the lion watched and the people remained united, Temasek would endure eternal, vigilant, and triumphant. The Singapore epic is now complete, 12 chapters, each about 1,000 words, in English, with full continuity and faithful to the story's progression.